All right, friends, welcome into episode 144 of the Leaning into Leadership podcast. Today's special midweek, mid-month edition for the month of June. If you're a regular watcher or listener for the show, you know that a few months ago, we started doing these special mid-month editions where my buddies Todd Bloomer and Dominic Armano join me, and we just talk shop. We just spend some time cutting it up over whatever topic seems to make the most sense. And tonight, our topic is going to be advice for the new principal. So maybe you're starting that first principalship. You're just getting ready. You're like thinking about how am I going to set up the furniture in my office and what stuff am I going to do to welcome my staff? And all of that's really important, but you got a whole lot more to be thinking about. And we are going to talk about that today. So with that, just real quick, Todd, Dom, welcome into the show, guys. I'm as always, just fired up to talk with you guys.
Yeah, I love jumping in with you guys each week. I wish this was a weekly thing, but with our schedules, probably couldn't jive with that. Todd from Texas, excited to be here, ready to talk shop, ready to connect. And as a side note, when this episode drops, Darrin and I will meet for the first time in Austin, Texas at TASSP Summer Conference. So I'm looking forward to shaking my hand and giving a hug to my friend, Dr. Darrin.
Absolutely.
Pepper.
Well, now I'm just really jealous because of two reasons. Number one, you actually get to see Darrin in real life. I would love to give Darrin a hug in real life. And also you mentioned summer conference. I'm still waiting for spring break over here in New York. I got another 4 weeks, guys. So, don't have too much fun in the sun. But Dominic here from New York, and I second everything Todd said. I love this. I love getting together with you guys and just talking shop. And but yeah, you enjoy your time on your summer break, Todd.
I will.
So yeah, and a little bit of clarity there. I have been in the city a few times, and it just never seems to work out that Dom is around and available when I am there. So eventually, my friend, it's going to happen. Yes. It really will. So. So folks, tonight, what we want to do is just really talk about that, that first year in the principalship. I know there are a lot of you who listen to the show that are aspiring leaders, a bunch of you that are in those early career years, and then a whole lot of you that, you've been doing it for a while, and maybe it's just something to kind of re-energize you a little bit, right? So tonight, we really want to lean into those early career brand new folks. And we don't really have a specific order we're going to go in. We're just going to kind of round robin this. And I was going to lead this off, but I'm actually not going to. Here's what we're going to do. The first one is going to come from Todd Bloomer, and here's why. If you're not aware of this, if you don't follow Todd on social media, you should, by the way. But Todd has been talking about this for quite some time. And right now, here at the home office of Road to Awesome in Omaha, Nebraska, Todd's new book, The Blueprint, is in the editing phase. It should be releasing sometime midsummer. And that book is all about everything to do with you're the new principal. So it makes only good sense, in my opinion, to throw this to Todd Bloomer to talk about, man, go, take one. What do you do? You're a brand new principal. Go.
Thank you for that kind intro to the Blueprint. I'm really excited about that. It's a 5-year collection of stories of my 10-year principalship. And it's a lot of lessons learned the hard way. And it's a lot of laughter. And it's a lot of, hey, you can do it type of motivation as we kind of go from there. So, just as I'm thinking here, if I started about this time, about 10 years ago, and the first thing that I did when I came into office was try to figure out how am I going to communicate with parents. And so in no particular order, I would say one of the first things you should do as you're coming into the role, it's June, you probably got an August or a September date. What is going to be your line of communication? How frequently, what modes, what different modes, and what is going to be your first opening message to your community about who you are as a leader? I had a great leader one time tell me, if you don't provide the narrative, one will be provided for you. And so I've always taken that advice to try to figure out, how am I going to communicate to parents? And so as you're getting right now, it's June, it's July, it's August, you're getting ready for that first. What does that first email communication look like to your parents? But I'd also take it a step further. If you're at a high school or a secondary, what does that first line of communication look like to your students? At high school, I'm able to send an email every week to my high school students, 9 through 12. Dom, that may be difficult for you at the elementary schools to may not access their emails, but you can't, they're in the blueprint. There's a great triangle that I talk about when it comes to the success of a school. And I call it the Bloomer triangle of success. And it is utilizing the triangle, which is the strongest form in geometry, and taking input and seeking voice from parents, students, and teachers. And so as you're getting ready to start your first principalship, think about those three groups. How are you going to communicate with parents? How are you going to communicate with kids? And how are you going to communicate with staff? What is that message, and what is that theme that you're going to go with throughout the year?
So, I just have to chime in real quick. I mean, it's like we've got Phil Jackson on the show right now. I mean, we're running the triangle right now, right? And working through the triangle. That is really beautiful. Actually, really, really strong advice, because I think so often as new leaders, it's easy to get caught up in all the work, right? All of the stuff, and forgetting or neglecting the communication can really maybe take you down the wrong road. So yeah, definitely leaning into that communication, I think, is a huge piece. That's a great start for us right there, Todd. Dom, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think, Todd, I think you not only hit the nail on the head, but I think you mentioned something that is extremely important, and it's that communication piece. And, I don't want to go back and just kind of, I, I don't want to just emphasize what you said, but I do. And the reason why I say that is because my first year as a principal was, we call ourselves the COVID principals. And the reason why we do that is because my first year as a principal was in September 2020. So we're talking about after the lockdown here in New York. So it was the first school year back to brick and mortar instruction, where we were going back to the buildings. And as the building leader, I had to be the one to figure out what that looks like. Where most first year principals are figuring out, like you said, Todd, how are they going to communicate with parents? Maybe schedules. Darrin, you talked about decorating the office and where you're going to put your desk and things like that. And my first year was, what does social distancing look like? How are we wearing masks? How am I fitting certain number of students in classrooms? Um, and really, the biggest piece of that and the success of that was the communication, because I was a new principal, so people knew me. I was the AP in the building, and they knew me for a long time, and they were comfortable with me, but they didn't know how I led a building. They didn't know what I would do in that role of principal. So what I did was I relied very heavily on communication, and I took it in a different direction. I took it in a direction that the school typically didn't go in. Obviously, we did emails and we did letters, and of course, we had to make phone calls when it came to contact tracing and things like that. But I also relied very heavily on social media. I relied very heavily on YouTube. I did things like that because the parents were also missing out on being able to come into the building like they used to. And we're talking elementary school. So you're talking about class parents and parties and Halloween parades and all of these things that they just are custom in elementary school. We couldn't do that in a typical way. We had to figure out how to do that in a way where no one ever figured out how to do it before, with social distancing and all of that. But then making sure that the parents knew exactly what was going on, and also making sure that they felt calm and safe. So my first year in the role was not typical of a first year, let's say now, but also really set the stage for me to be successful moving on in my career, because that also set the bar in terms of how I communicate. And now I only know how to over communicate, which is not a bad thing when you're dealing, especially with children in elementary school. So like I said, 100%, I think communication by far is the top advice for someone new stepping into the role. Figure that out. Figure out how you're going to do it, and do it well.
And Dominic, that's a great point. I'm going to add into something there to say what you did was brilliant, because we all send an email or a s'more, but we have to find out where our clientele is. And you mentioned social media. I know if I want to capture a quick audience at Churchill High School, it's Instagram, because every student is on Instagram. And so that is a quick way to be able to get it. 10 years ago, we would have never thought of communication via social media. It would have been the email, the paper updated newsletter that you send out. So while the s'more newsletter is great, the email is great, hitting social media is just another extremely important deal for what you have. And then honestly, the next step in my tenure here as a principal, I have to do a better job of making sure I'm communicating to different groups in different languages, because there's a huge part of my group that is not an English speaking language first. And if I'm failing to meet them where they're at, then I'm missing out on a huge portion of a population that wants to support my campus and doesn't know how. And I need to be able to meet them that way. So communication is that. It's not just traditional. It's looking for other ways to be able to go and reach parents or reach students. So kudos to you for doing that.
Yeah, and I want to even take it a step further, right? So like obviously we're talking about advice for the new principal, right? So right now it's June. There are people being offered jobs, left and right, stepping into the role. They're excited. They have all these ideas. But remember, communication is a two-way street, right? So there's communication, like as the building leader, how are you going to communicate out? But the other form of that communication is listening. And I think that's a very big piece of being a new principal, especially in a school that you may not necessarily have been in. So I've done this now twice. So I've been a new principal twice. And it's kind of funny because I've only been a principal 4 years, right? I've been an AP for a very long time, but in 4 years, I've kind of been a principal twice. In my old school, I was the AP. I became the principal. I was a teacher there. I was there forever. And it was a great experience. Now I'm in this role in this new building in a new district that I've never been in. I'm the outsider coming in. Everyone else in the building has been there 15, 16, 17, 18, whatever, 20 years. I'm the new guy. I'm coming in. Hey, I'm the principal. Let's rock and roll. Let's do this. Let's do that. Hold on. Slow down. Listening. I did a listening tour, and I did that really in both schools, honestly. I did it where I was, even though I've been there. I was listening from a different perspective, right? I knew the answers, but I knew the answers in the role of an AP. I didn't know the answers in the role of the principal. And now where I am, this listening tour was extremely beneficial, because for me, it was able to really truly understand or at least get a sense of the community. Because being a principal is not just about being the instructional leader of the building or building culture. For those of you that listen to the show and follow me on social media, I'm a big climate and culture guy. It's more than that. It's more than culture. It's more than being the instructional leader. It's being the spokesperson of that community. It's being the person that's going to, sing the praises, be the champion of that building. And so being able to listen and listen with intent, I believe, is also extremely beneficial. And again, it's part of communication, right? So it's like I said, it's more than just what you're saying. It's also what you're taking in and what you do with that information.
It's great stuff.
Man, I think that's that's huge. And I think it's an area that a lot of leaders will struggle with. You come into the role and you're charged with leading that school, and you're charged with fixing whatever's wrong, and you want to charge headlong into it. You want to just go. I know what to do. I can do this. But if you don't take the time, and whatever amount of time you think is necessary for your listening tour, triple it, because you really do need to listen that much. And I can tell you, moving from, I did what Dom did, moving from assistant principal to principal in the same building, and I'd been there 5 years. I was the instructional leader already. I knew it. I was the culture builder of the school, but I should have spent more time listening to what people wanted and needed from me in my new role, and don't just think that I'm just going to become or be the same person that I am, in that role. I should be the same authentic person, but my role has changed and I need to understand that. So I think that's a really big piece. I love that you guys are talking about the communication stuff. I want to give one that's a little bit more of a light topic, but one of the things that, and I didn't do this my first year as a principal, I think this was about year 2 or year 3 that we started doing this. I'm going to say it was year 2, but you're new, but you know what? There's going to be other new people in the building. You might have, we were talking before we hit record, Todd hired a special ed teacher today, right? And we'll probably hire a few more. Dom will probably have to hire a few people. You're going to have new people on your campus. So think about and be strategic about what you can do to ensure that their transition is smooth. And I'm not talking about get them a mentor and show them where the copier is. Yeah, you're going to do that anyway. But what are some really intentional things you can do? And obviously you have to know what your negotiated agreements or any of that kind of stuff allow you to do. But starting in year 2, I started doing a regular once a month, everybody who was new to the staff, we had a half-hour meeting. And we kind of had it laid out through the course of the year. We're going to talk about this. Then we're going to talk about this. Then we're going to talk about that. Because if you blast them with everything at the very beginning, A, they're not listening. And B, they won't remember it. Because C, they just want to get in their room and get stuff set up, right? So set it up in a way that you can kind of lay it out. And I'll throw in a bonus. We started doing just something, a little simple way of making them feel like they were part of our team. One, everybody got, some swag, but we also would cut them a $100 purchase order for staples. So, the stuff you want for your classroom, my secretary would have a $100 purchase order for staples. Here you go. Go get whatever you feel like you need. Yes, we have a supply closet, but, there might be certain things, just let them go do something to help them set up their classroom. So think about something cool and fun you can do with those other people who are new to your building. And because you're new, it could be a really cool tradition for you to get started.
I'll jump in something kind of neat going along with the communication piece. I send an email to the staff every Monday morning at 7:30, but I send an email to all new teachers at 8:30, and it's a different message. And it's a message about some of those nuts and bolts that you talked about. Don't forget this, don't forget that, and a little motivational piece at the end. Don't forget to take care of yourself. Don't forget to go say thank you to somebody, do something kind for someone else that's new. And that was the first year I did that. I really found that to be successful. In fact, I didn't send one the second week of May, and someone said, hey, am I off the list for getting the email? Because my first year as a principal, I fell in the trap of thinking, if I send too many emails, I'm over communicating and someone's going to not like that. And so I said, hey, you know what? Every Monday morning, 7:30, delayed delivery hits your inbox. All staff, 8:30 delayed delivery, all new teachers. Now in the blueprint, since we're talking about the book, in the blueprint, I talk a lot about taking those new teachers and treating them as irreplaceables, because those are the people. And Dom in New York, he's got a different world. He's got many people looking for jobs. In Texas, we're struggling. We have people we have some jobs that get posted multiple times and have none to few candidates in there. So it's a buyer's market for teachers right now. And so, as we're talking about treating these people like irreplaceables, I can't lose the people that I hire each year. Like, I got to start somewhere. And so really the goal is trying to treat those folks as irreplaceables, championing them, building them up, being in their classroom, encouraging them to go to games, highlighting what they've done well, pairing them up with people, and just making sure they feel that the principal, and not that I'm this important person on a campus, but that the principal goes to these new teachers as much as I go to the veteran teachers. So I want to be in the veteran teacher, but I also want to be in that new teacher to make them feel good. And then when I see them, I want to make sure they feel I'm excited to see first year teacher Dominic Armano. Like, tell me something good. How about them Cowboys? Let's talk football. Let's talk life. Tell me something good. And one day when I have both you two on my campus, I sit outside. We have 9 buildings that's outside, and I sit on this red bench for the last 6 weeks of school, before school and first period, to be able to monitor kids. And it became my bench. And every new teacher or any teacher that walked by, I'd say, "Hey, Darrin, come sit down and tell me something good." And I made sure new teachers knew that I cared and I wanted to be there. And I would tell any new principal that's getting in there, these people, these are our future. And we can't just hand them the keys and in October go check on them. We have to check on these folks all the time. And if they say, I need some help with a student, with a parent, that is our job. That's why we're here. That's the exciting part. We have to support them because this cycle will never break if every year the new teachers are leaving in year 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, whenever they get there. So if I can get them to year 5, they're good. They're staying at Churchill. So I got to make sure I treat them as irreplaceables, and I got to make sure I champion them. You mentioned being the cheerleader. Like, they need to know that Todd Bloomer, when I'm at the grocery store or church or at the pool, I am talking about how great it is to go to Churchill High School. In fact, I had 2 new teachers come in today to talk. And one of the things that I talked to them about is a fierce loyalty to our campus. Like, while you're here, this is Beverly Hills 90210, one of my favorite all-time TV shows. This is the greatest high school ever. So when you go on Facebook or you go to the pool and someone says, what's it like to be a public ed teacher at Churchill High School? I need you to be the most fierce advocate and loyal person of what we have. And then they hear from me why it's important to be at Churchill High School. And I think when they hear the principal's vision, when they know, as Darrin said, we're the champion and the cheerleader for them, and we treat them just like the 20-year teacher on the campus, like, I think they feel connected to the campus. And when they're connected, I think they stay. So irreplaceables.
Wow. Like, I just, again, like, I think Darrin has referenced this a few times where, like, obviously, Todd, you're definitely more seasoned in the role, and I'm kind of a newer leader. That was just, I was writing notes down when you were saying that. I think that's
fired
great.
Me up saying it.
One of the things that I was thinking about, which I don't know why I feel this, and maybe I'm going to defer to the my 2 buddies in the room here, and mentors to me, people that I look after,
The
and
sage
get feedback
veterans.
from. The veterans,
Yeah.
yes, the veterans here in the room. For whatever reason, I'm 16 years in, right? And that's not a lot for, people that have been doing this 20, 21 years, things like that. But it really is, like 16 years in the role doing this job. Like, you're no longer a newbie. You are a veteran. You've seen a lot. But for whatever reason, I still very much remember the days of being that new teacher. I still very much remember and feel what it was like for even like the permanent substitutes that that they come to the building every day, but they're a substitute, they're not appointed to a position. Like, I remember what it's like to be like that, to try and find that permanent job, to be the new teacher in the classroom. I remember that. I feel that. My wife, shout out to my wife Sarah, she's a teacher as well. We started in different schools, but started at the same time. And as newbies, as new teachers, we were very much able to have each other and talk to each other, and have those experiences, and have those feelings and those emotions. And I remember that when I meet my newbies. I remember that when they come to my school. I remember that when I hire them. And I'm the first to tell them, like, I sit them down, and again, I don't, no one ever said this to me, and I wish they did. And maybe this is why I say it, but I sit them down, and yes, we talk nuts and bolts. We do this, we do that. And then I stop them and I say, guys, this year may suck, and that's okay. Like, I want them to know that that's okay. I'm not, believe me, I'm a cheerleader, and I will cheer for my school, and I'm very big with support. Todd, what you were saying, I am very much so. I want to support my new teachers when it comes to parents and it comes to kids and it comes to that. But I also want them to know that this year may not be perfect, and that's okay. And it's for no fault of their own. And I want them to know that they have, I'm there ready to catch them when they're ready to fall. Because my first year, and I actually talk about it in my book, my first year, and I hate to say it, it sucked.
Mhm.
It was bad. It was so bad that there was a moment where I almost went back to school to get an MBA and leave the profession altogether because I had no one saying it's okay that you feel like this. It's okay that you feel overwhelmed. And sometimes as a new person hearing that, especially hearing it from the principal, right? Because they're the boss. They're the ones you have to impress. I remember when I was a new teacher, someone said to me, "Don't ever bring any of your discipline problems to the principal because they're going to think that you can't handle it, and that's you just keep it in your room, you shut your door, and just everything's fine, everything's great." And I remember being like, "Oh, okay." I'm not like that, and I want them to know that it's okay. It's okay if it doesn't go right. No one. I'm not going to walk in and hammer them because something went wrong or a parent is upset or something like that. They're learning,
Mhm.
and we all make mistakes. Like think about it. When you're a baby and you get up to walk for the first time, you fall. That's part of life. I don't expect my new teachers to get up and walk and then run right away. I expect them to fall. And like the dad, I'm going to catch them and support them.
You know what I would add to that, Dominic, and that's such a good reminder as you're talking to these 20 something kiddos that are coming out that are, getting into our profession. I'll always add that I hired you for a reason. I hired you because you're really good at what you do. You're smart. You've done a good job. You demonstrated that. So please bring your ideas to the table. And what I will say now, because of what you just shared with me, is, hey, it's okay that first couple of weeks that you defer to lead teacher, PLC, you take lessons from them. But at some point, like your use of technology or your fresh ideas needs to be brought to the table. And I think that's such a brilliant move that you do to give them permission to fail. Like you got to pick yourself up and get after it again, like the kid who fell over and gets up and walks again. But I also think, hey, at what point when you're standing on your own 2 feet, it's your job to prepare a lesson. It's your job to bring technology into the PLC. It's your job to look at, remediation or acceleration. So I think that's brilliant. Your teachers are lucky that you're sharing that with them. So first year principals, that's a gem right there, Dom, a gem.
Yeah. I you mentioned it earlier, Dom, and I want to kind of circle back to it. You mentioned culture and the importance of building culture. All three of us really believe in building culture. But new principals, don't make the mistake that everything is about being intentional specifically to culture, because what Dominic is talking about is a very specific step for culture without it being about culture. That's building a culture of trust. That's building a culture where, hey, it's okay to fail. We're all going to make mistakes. And knowing that my principal told me from the beginning, hey, something's not going to go well this year. And then when it does, it's almost like I can go to you and say, hey, Dom, you were right. Guess what? This absolutely blew up in my face. Listening to you talk just really reinforced that culture piece, that I was always really intentional about thinking about as many different things as I could with culture, but developing just that underlying belief, that structure that, hey, it's okay to fail here and I've got you, is such a huge piece, man. I can't say enough about that. But one thing I want to say, and this one will tie into my next one, is as much as we have talked about leaning into our teachers, and we've talked about leaning into parents, and we've talked about leaning into our students, we have a whole other group that's on our campus that so often gets overlooked and gets forgotten. But they honestly are the ones who make it all tick, right? Here just recently on the podcast, when I had Dr. Andrea Gilbert on, she talked about her work with professional development for classified staff. In her district, she has almost the exact same number of classified staff as she has certified staff. So don't overlook your classified staff. But I want to go to one person specifically here, and that is your secretary. There is nobody more important than your secretary, administrative assistant, director of first impressions. I don't care what you call that person. But oh my goodness, I don't think I understood that enough in my first year as a principal. I mean, I see, Dom looks like he's about ready to jump out of his skin on this one,
Yeah.
right? Because this one's huge, right, guys? I mean,
Yeah.
this is huge. Man, I think about.
Will,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Darrin. Go ahead. Go, and then I have to chime in.
Okay, yeah. See, I knew this one would hit a chord, right? So, again, I'd been the AP in the building. I knew Marilyn, my secretary, before she was my secretary, but I didn't get it. And sometimes I still think it was just me, and maybe other principals were better at this than I was, but I didn't realize just how much not only she could do for me, but that she did for the school and that she brought to the table until when I started working with my leadership coach. One of the first things he said was, okay, we got to work on your communication with your secretary. You need to be so intentional with that relationship. Like, we met every single day, and usually it was just 5 to 7 minutes. Sometimes we had longer meetings too, but every single day, 5 to 7 quick minutes. Here's what's going on, Darrin. Here's what came in yesterday. Here's what I did for you yesterday. Here are the things that, were in your email or that you've got on your calendar, or these are the things I need you to be mindful of, or whatever, right? That person, and you guys, I know it's been said on your campuses that, your secretary really is the one who runs the school. I mean, my wife was a principal secretary. I mean, Todd, I told you today, we had a call earlier today with Todd. My wife ran our high school when she was the high school principal secretary. That relationship, man, the number one piece of advice I can give new principals, you really, really need to lean into that relationship, because that can either make you or it can break you. Go ahead, Dom.
Yeah. So wow, because you touched upon something that I didn't really truly understand until this year. So again, two different worlds, right? My old school, I was an AP, principal there, teacher there. I knew Marie. She was a secretary, came into the role, my biggest cheerleader, support, all of that. Leaving that school that I knew for forever, right? And going now to a school that I had zero idea about. I rely very, very heavily on the secretaries, and shout out to Jen, Ellen, and Cookie. I'm fortunate enough to have 3 support superstars in my office. But again, new principal, new school, new district. I reached out to them right after school ended. I took over July 1st as the principal, right? Start of the summer. No kids are in session. Building is empty. They have a couple hours that they work, throughout the summer. I emailed them. I said, hey, I want to come down. What kind of coffee do you guys like? I'll bring some coffee, bring some donuts. And that was my first meeting with them, my first interaction with them. Brought some Dunkin' Donuts, some coffee, some donuts, sat down with them, and wound up spending 4 hours with them as they told me the ins and the outs of everything. The school, the teachers, the kids, the parents, the this, the that. And like, talk about a lifeline, right? So, it's weird. Like, I was just had this conversation with my wife yesterday about when principals start, right? Like, typically you start July 1 if you're new, and like, it's an awkward time to start, because then like your first day of school with the kids is also like your first day of really meeting the kids. And here you are kind of navigating the first day of school with the kids and not knowing, it'd be one thing if you've been in the building forever, you know it like the back of your hand, you can't anticipate all these mistakes. But the arrival procedures, dismissal procedures, yeah, they give you files, you read them, but what does it really look like? You have to be there to see what it looks like. So just having them as a lifeline to say, this is how we do this. This is what we do. This is the person who stands here. And you know, Jen, my secretary now, is 3 steps ahead of me. I go in the morning, and she calls it folder time, where she sits down with me, and she has like a folder of things that I need to sign, and then she goes, oh, by the way, this letter needs to go out next week because it's about the science fair, or the state tests are coming up. Did you think about this? And the moving up ceremony is coming. This is last year's pamphlet of what we did, and like totally on it. And I don't think I would be able to survive if it wasn't for Jen kind of saying, Dom, this is where you need to go. Just yesterday I said to her, I said, Jen, I promise next year I'm gonna know all this. And she started laughing. She goes, I know, but I'm still gonna help. And huge lifeline. And so advice to new principals:
It's huge.
buy them a cup of coffee, sit down with them, talk to them, listen to them. They will take you where you need to be.
I'm going to add to that because I've got a complete lifeline with my secretary. She is my right hand, my left hand. And I'll also say for first year principals getting ready to come in, most of our paraprofessionals do the job because they love the school. It's like a neighborhood school for them. Either their kids went there, it's close to the house, and they want to be on a schedule as their kids. And so a lot of the folks that I've worked with are extremely intelligent people. And if you task them with jobs, if you ask them, they'll come up with stuff that's better than you. So kudos to the folder time, Dom, of kind of what you have. I will say to first year principals, sitting down and visiting with your secretary is just paramount. Making sure you are on the same page is paramount. Everybody picks up the phone. They want to call and talk to the principal. Secretary is the one that answers. If the secretary puts every call through to you, you'll never do anything else. So I would tell first year principals sitting down, first of all, just to talk about, hey, if somebody calls and they got an issue about band, have you talked to the band director? Let me get the band director. I'll have the band director call you back. That's a lifeline, because first year principals, we think we need to solve everything, and every phone call comes to us, and then we run out and talk to the band director. We figure out what's going on. We call the parent back when we could have just had the band director call back. I would tell first year principal, calendar is so important, and your secretary controls your calendar. Parents who want to get on it, kids who want to get on it, where you should be and where you shouldn't be. And so I would really say getting with your secretary and saying, here's my philosophy. Here's what I believe in. Here's where I want to put all my time and value for what I have. So making sure your secretary can control your calendar, and then offering praise to them all the time. They're irreplaceables also. They are people that, like I said, they don't do it for big bucks. They do it because they love what they do. My secretary, you can't get past her if you got a frown on your face. And having a friendly person up front that can meet a parent that, a lot of times when they come to speak to Dom or myself or Darrin, when you're principal, they're there because their kid may be in trouble or they're upset. And when you have someone there that can empathize, can get them a cup of coffee, can get them water, can give them a hug, can tell them it's going to be okay, they often soften the blow for me. And so when I walk into that parent conference, they're like, hey, she's awesome. And I'm like, yeah, she's the heart and soul. She's Miss Churchill for what I do. So first year principals that are going in, buy the Dunkin' Donuts, buy the coffee, spend time with all of the folks that are up there. We have 8 women in our front office, and I couldn't do without any of them. And they're all fabulous at what they do. So it's important I know their story as much as I know every teacher's story. So what is the secretary's story? Where her kids go to school? Is she a grandmother? What is my bookkeeper's story? Do I need to help and support with what we need? When are their birthdays? When are things that we can help with? And so as we talk about the culture and a family and stuff, everybody needs to be included in that. And those are lifelines to make sure that we're successful. And so sitting with your secretary daily, sitting informally, formally, it's gold, absolute gold.
100%. 100%. All right, guys. So here's what we're going to do. We're getting a little bit late into the show, but we're going to keep rolling, but we're going to do it a little bit differently now. Okay. So this is like totally the rapid fire round. Okay. No elaboration. Just here's the advice. All right. Round the horn we go. I will go first on this one. And then I don't care whoever jump in next, but here's mine. Do like Todd, find a place where you can be visible as much as possible with kids, with staff on a regular basis. You can't lead from your office.
Facts. I will add to that, find a group of mentors and people that are doing what you do and talk to them regularly and share your concerns with them and ask for advice as needed. We don't know everything.
And I'm going to jump in and say, have fun. Because at the end of the day, we're dealing with kids. Whether they're 4 or 5 in the elementary school or 16, 17, or 18 in the high school, have fun.
Mm-hmm.
I love that one. That one is really, really good. I'll tell you, depending on where you live, get outside as much as you can. When Todd's got 9 outdoor buildings, so hey, go from building A to building B or building 1 to building 2, whatever, however you're structured, but get outside as often as you can. My building was 4 floors. But I would frequently find unique ways to get from one floor to another where I could just go outside, even in the middle of winter, just like, unless it was like a blizzard, go out and get a little bit of sun, get a little bit of that exposure, because you need that vitamin D to keep yourself going, right? Just get outside a little bit.
First year principal advice, which I think is just excellent, is when stuff is not going well, and there will be times that stuff does not go well for the principal. Get back to why you got in the profession. Go sit in the band hall, as you kind of mentioned. Listen to them play. Go sit in chemistry class. Go to lunch duty. Go watch football practice, and remind yourself of why you're there. And magically, it won't go away, but magically you will feel better about what you're doing. Be around the people that you want to be around. Be around kids.
I'm going to listen to this next Wednesday when it drops and hopefully take this advice, because I don't. Have lunch and drink water. The building's not going to run away. It's okay to stop, take care of yourself, have a bite to eat, and drink some water. From a guy that barely eats all day and has suffered from kidney stones, take my advice. Have some lunch and drink some water.
Hey, I'll jump on that, Dom and Darrin. I got 5 children. And so my first year as a principal, I neglected my son's sporting events because I was at a rival middle school. So I would say never do that. You have to be at events, but parents will understand if you have other events. So take care of your wife, take care of your spouse, take care of your children. And when you take care of them, they take care of you. Don't make them second fiddle to what you do, ever.
That's outstanding.
100%. Yep.
Facts.
Yeah. And so I'm going to wrap the whole thing up with one final one, and you guys certainly could chime in a little bit on it if you would like. But here's the thing about being the principal. There are 100 things you can put on the job description. There are 1,000 tasks and items that need to be done. But the bottom line is this: your job is to lead people. And you can't lead people if you don't build relationships. It is 100% about you leading people. The good leaders will get their people to believe in the leader. The great leaders will get the people to believe in themselves as much as they believe in you as the leader. Focus on your people. That is your job.
Facts. I can't top that, Darrin.
100%.
Yep.
Yeah. That was it.
There we go.
Mike,
that was the advice. That was it.
That's right. And so as a first year principal, now you have your direction. Good luck. And one other one. You've got 3 guys right here to reach out to. Seriously. All 3 of us. If you have a question, I don't care where you are, I don't care, what level you are. I mean, we've got, Dom is an elementary expert. We've got Todd, who's been middle and high school. I was high school and a superintendent. Man, if you run into something and you're like, I don't have that mentor that Todd is talking about. I don't know who to reach out to. You got 3 people right here. Seriously, just reach out to us. We are happy to help. 100%.
Facts.
Yeah, agreed. 100%.
Yeah. All right, fellas. Well, there we go, folks. That is a wrap for episode 144 of the Leaning Into Leadership podcast. As always, guys, man, I'm so jazzed up right now. and just love sitting and talking shop with you guys. Love sitting and talking leadership, and appreciate you guys. Appreciate your friendship, and thanks for joining me here on the show tonight, guys.
Great week.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.